Okay, there we go. Sorry. Ah, this is so frustrating when that happens. I don't know why it happens, but it does sometimes. But yeah, we're gonna start over. Um, Hello. Hi. Okay, yeah. So I've been asked a lot of times about how to run remote workshops, and so for that reason, I am doing this live stream just to answer questions that I've gotten about it. Um, yeah, just because of the current circumstances, everybody is wondering about yeah, how you run remote workshops because conferences are canceling, but they want to continue their workshops and, you know, salvage what they can of the marketing that they've done and everything. So yeah, I've just like a lot. At least I had like 2 people yesterday, somebody the day before. Yeah, the conferences all over the place asking me how to do remote workshops. And the reason that they're asking is because I do remote workshops. That's lots of what I do. And before I get started explaining how I go about doing this, I just wanted to mention that I am scheduling all of my React workshops as remote workshops very soon. And so go ahead and put yourself on the wait list for any of these that seem interesting to you. In the next few days, we'll have these scheduled out. And they will be in a specific order. So if you want to learn everything that I know about React, then just attend them all. But yeah, this is going to be kind of big and kind of cool. So I think you'll like that. But yeah, let's talk about how we or how I run workshops in general and remote workshops specifically. And I'm going to pull up a couple of the questions that I've gotten from some folks about this right here and just answer them. And feel free to ask in the chat if you have questions. Yeah, and so actually there is a question here in the chat from, I don't know how to say your name, Swizek. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. But I do know who you are, and I interact with you a lot on Twitter. And I was looking forward to meeting you at Reactathon, but that didn't happen. So anyway, the question is, how do you get people engaged more on the chat? That's been my main pain point. I don't do chat. I mean, we have chat, but I use Zoom for everything. And so let me just start a new meeting here. Woo! Ta-da! Whoa! And so yeah, I'm using Zoom for everything, and I'll just show you my Zoom workflow. You can actually, I did a little video that I link in all of my workshops. Here, let's see, React fundamentals on GitHub. Nope, that's Netlify. Man. Okay, GitHub. What are you? There we go. Yeah, so if you go to kcd.edu, that topic, or kcd-edu, that topic on GitHub, then you'll find all of my educational resources and stuff in here. Some of them are kind of old, but you look at anything that's recent, and you'll see something that looks like this at the top. And here I have use Zoom for KCD workshops. This is a free video that you can watch on Egghead that goes through how I use Zoom for workshops. And I explain how I use Zoom for that. So I actually recommend here. Yeah, sure, we'll join audio. Whatever, that's fine. I actually recommend going through and watching this because that'll give you lots of detail on stuff. But basically what I do is I schedule a Zoom meeting. I give people the link, give them a calendar event. That's actually pretty important to give them a calendar event because then time zones are not an issue when you send them a calendar event. So you can't force them to add it to their calendar or respond, but I found that time zones can be a real pain in the neck. So, and actually, Egghead manages lots of the logistics for me on my workshops as well. So they often will do like set up the emails and everything to send out to people about things. But in any case, yeah, having a calendar event is really helpful. And I put the link in the calendar event. I put a link to the workshop, and the workshop repo has all of the setup instructions for people to follow through. And then let's see, it's kind of weird. Maybe I should turn off this video while I've got that on. There we go. Hi, that works. Anyway, so here in our participants area, you'll see that we have this yes, no. I use that sometimes. I'll say, hey, just say yes if you want to break right now, or no if you don't. Um, People don't ever use go slower or go faster. Sometimes at the end they'll use the clap. But yeah, and then I'll just clear all when when I ask something and they're all done answering whatever. Sometimes I'll have people raise their hand. I think, yeah, if I had participants, you could raise your hand. That happens sometimes, but I don't often I don't often keep track of the chat or this stuff over here. It's normally on my other screen that I'm not sharing. And I just encourage people to interrupt me as we go. And that works out pretty well. Having somebody in the chat that can kind of help, and I actually encourage them to help each other in the chat. That's pretty effective. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I manage chat. I don't really worry too much about people being active in the chat. I strongly encourage people interrupting me as we're going, and I do stop and ask for questions, and I'll let it be awkwardly silent for a while. Lots of the same things that I do for remote workshops are applicable regardless of whether you're remote or in person. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that goes. Are you still talking Reactathon? No, that has been canceled. So that is part of the reason why I think so many people are asking me about this stuff. Yeah, if you've signed up for something, it's possible that you're already on my mailing list, and in that case, I don't think that you're going to get an email, like any sort of confirmation email. So if you're already on my mailing list and you sign up on one of these, I don't think that you're going to get any sort of confirmation. It'll just add you to the list of people that I have in my list of people. So yeah, feel free to ask any other questions, but I'm just going to show you some other things that I do in here. So I do record, but I don't actually make the recording available. The recording is for me to watch later. If you do make the recording available, I would charge more for that. I charge, what is it? I forget now. $5.99 for my workshops, and my workshops are 5 hours, and included in that is a 1 hour break. So in case people are wondering about that, I do cap the attendance to 40 people. And I think like we get this mistaken impression that because it's online, that means we're not, bound by the amount of space that we have at the venue or whatever. And yes, that's true. But I don't think that it's a good idea to just have 1,000 people in there, because then it switches from a workshop to a webinar where people can't really ask questions, and then those who do ask questions just kind of cannibalize or just eat the entire time, which makes it a worse experience for everybody else. And so 40 is definitely my max. 30 is a bit better. And eventually you just like in a normal workshop, you have to learn to say, no, we're not going to answer that question. Here's a blog post you can read later or something. You just have to dedicate a couple minutes for questions, and no more. So let's see, what other questions do people typically ask me? Oh yeah. So another thing about Zoom, and I show you how to do this in that video that you can find on any of my recent workshops. Just look at my recent GitHub history, actually. You'll find it there. But I use Breakout Rooms pretty a lot. They're great, and you have to kind of train the attendees how to use Breakout Rooms effectively, because it can be a little awkward, because these people from random places all over the world are getting grouped into groups of about 4 or 5. And so lots of the time they'll just turn their video off and work on their own. And that's a recipe for not disaster, but for less learning and retention. And so I strongly encourage people to interact with each other in those breakout rooms. I encourage them to start in that first breakout room, getting to know each other, asking each other's names and things, so that they've at least said words to one another. That kind of breaks the ice. And then especially in that first breakout, and I'll just say breakout rooms are basically Zoom creates a bunch of meetings, one meeting for each room, and it sends everybody to those individual meetings. And then when I'm done for the exercise, then I'll say, okay, meeting's done. You have 60 seconds to wrap up, and it'll bring everybody back in to the main meeting. It's really awesome. And it's a huge competitive advantage for Zoom. I couldn't use anything else, honestly, because of that. So yeah, I use the breakout rooms. The first exercise, I jump into every single one as quickly as I can, and I just make sure everybody's introduced each other, make sure everybody has the repo set up properly, and answer any questions about just logistics that they might have. And that's kind of what how I go about doing the breakout rooms. We spend a lot of the time in the breakout rooms. And I'll jump around through every single exercise. I hit every room at least once, just to make sure that everybody's doing okay, doesn't have any questions or anything. So, yeah, let's see. That's pretty much it for these. I do encourage everybody to leave their video on, but turn their audio off unless they have a question. And yeah, I think that's... Oh, and then of course I am sharing my screen the whole time as well, so that people can see this. And then you have to come in here and go to breakout rooms here, and and learning hotkeys is a good thing to do as well, because you're like setting up all these windows the entire time. So it's kind of a pain, but it works out really nicely. And I strongly advise Zoom. I think that's everything for the way that Zoom works. When the meeting's over, I just say, thanks everyone, we'll see you later. And then that's it. They don't even have to pack up their things because they're probably in their office. So, then I just end the meeting for everybody and we're done. And let me turn this thing back on. Hello. So let me see if there are any other questions here in the chat. Do your students mostly code along with you as you explain, or do you teach a lesson and then issue challenges? If the issue challenge, how do you review the code? Okay, yeah. So this is kind of getting into less specific about like remote workshops and more about workshops in general. And so in my mind, there are three kinds of workshops. There's, and this is my favorite one right here. And this is the like isolated exercise type of workshop. And so here I have a source and then I have an exercise, and inside the exercise I have just numbered exercises. I have a markdown for background on what it is that why are we trying to do the thing that we're about to do. I have an exercise that describes, okay, so now that you understand the why, here's the specific scenario that we're going to apply it to. And then I have extra credit for people who finish early, and because I always have more content than I want people to work through. And so I also have a blog post that kind of goes into this as well, and it is called How I Teach. And I talk about a couple of the things that I learned from the book Make It Stick, so give that a look. And I don't think that I really described this specifically in here, but definitely give this a look. But generally the idea is I want to get people into the exercise as quickly as possible, and that means that I don't give them a whole lot of information. I give them the basic, like, here's the problem, okay, solve that problem. And then my exercise has very super hand-holdy notes and comments on what exactly they're supposed to be doing on the line that it's supposed to happen. So for some of these more advanced ones, I have a lot of stuff is laid out. This one's actually more of a demo than an exercise. There we go. So I'll have a bunch of stuff fleshed out, that is distracting. I just did that for you. You know how to do this stuff, so I'm saving you some time. And here is where you need to make your code changes. So it's really important that they are working in the code, but it's not important that they're spending a ton of time doing things that are unrelated to their learning. And so I fill this out with just super helpful stuff. And that's because I don't teach them how to do it first. I expect them to just go through, stumble through it, and I also don't expect them to finish. The goal is to open their brain so that it can be ready to receive the knowledge that I'm about to put into it. And so, that's actually part of the reason why I have extra credits as well, is so that we can accomplish the goal of making sure that people get into the exercise and start working through and struggling through things but then I can jump in even if they haven't finished yet. But then there are always people who already know all of this stuff and they're just speeding through everything. So having extra credit is really good for them. So almost every exercise has some sort of extra credit associated to it. And then here in the final, I don't want anybody banging their head against the wall trying to figure out how to do something. And really, it's okay if they do, because I'm not going to leave them for very long. But I do want them to feel like they have some sort of recourse if they just want to figure out what's going on, or they want to review like what my solution is. And so that's what the final is. It's the final version or the solution for all of the exercises. And that's actually good for me too to reference. And I have tests that run across all of those things to make sure I don't break anything in the future. So it's really important that people just get into it. They work through it as much as they can. I leave them there for a couple minutes. I jump into their breakout room, check in with them, ask them questions if they have any questions of me. And if some of those questions are really good general questions that I should probably answer for everybody, then I'll just say, oh, that's a great question. Let me write it down. And when we all come back together, I'll answer that question. I don't check their code. I don't check in on them and make sure that they are doing it right. That is totally up to them. But the goal of having them do the exercise before I go through the solution or even teach them anything is just so they can start struggling, to turn that struggle into good questions, because it's really tricky for people to ask questions after they just watch you do something. They need to struggle with it first, and that's what creates the questions, is their struggle. And that's actually something that I talk about when I'm getting going. I don't think I have it written down in here, but here's I've got this outline, and in here I talk about how important it is when I'm showing them this. I talk about how important it is that they struggle through some of this stuff. So that's kind of the idea. Another thing that I have in here is these emoji that they'll see throughout the workshop, so they're like really nice visual cues for, okay, anywhere I see Cody the Koala Bear, I have to do something. Anywhere I see Marty the Money Bag, that means he's just giving me some code to copy paste, stuff like that. Some code that's not relevant. So like this lesson, we're learning about how to use state and use effect. But to do that, the thing that we're implementing is local storage. Well, I don't know local storage, and it's not relevant to my learning of use effect. And so Marty the Money Bag gave me the code that I need for interacting with local storage, just as an example. That helps a lot. But like the key takeaway for all of this is I make my workshops so that you could go through the whole thing by yourself and be successful and learn a lot of stuff. The benefit to coming to the workshop is that all of the questions that you come up with as you're working through the material can be answered by me. And so you can ask me those questions and ask follow-up questions, and it works out really nicely that way. But I make it like this is really critical for remote workshops, is you want to make it so that people could work through it all by themselves, because they will often be by themselves. And you do want to make it so that they are interacting in the breakout rooms. That is really helpful. But lots of times they're not. They're just not going to, which is really kind of annoying that they don't. But they should, and hopefully they do. But making the workshop, making it so they can work through the workshop themselves helps a lot in their engagement of the material. Otherwise, you just lose them to Twitter. Like it's so much easier to lose people in a remote setting than it is in person, when you can like walk around the rows and stuff. So great question, Benjamin. That was the only other question there. So question. Thanks, Benjamin. Thanks for your question. Feel free to ask more questions. I also mentioned that there are 3 types of workshops. So this is one type. This is my favorite type because it is just so easy for people to follow along. It's like, okay, here's 1, we're doing 1, we go through the thing. Okay, now we'll move on to 2, and they just know where they need to be at all times. The next type of workshop is we've got an existing project here, and we're going to jump into different places and add features to this project. So an example of that would be my testing Node apps workshop. So this one, it is actually it's the backend for the React bookshelf. It's actually a fake backend, but it's so a backend for this thing, but it's already built. And so the way that it works is if we go to the outline, it's quite a bit more complicated. Well, not quite a bit, but like the way that it works is we have, these are our exercises, and this is the file that you open to start this exercise. That's all that it is. And so then if we go to that file, then here's the background, and from here it's basically the same stuff. So we have the background, the exercise, and here's the extra credit. Oh, here's another thing. Elaboration and feedback is really important. And this actually you'll learn a little bit from how I teach, where I talk about elaboration right here, describe what you learn in your own words. And so that's what this is all about. So every single exercise, at the end of the exercise, after I've done the instruction and before I move on to the next one, it's just a good idea to stop and think, okay, so what did I learn from this? What do I need to take away from this experience? And so I have a link at the bottom of every single one of these that takes them to a form that's mostly pre-filled out, and I actually have a script that will replace the and em equals with the and em with their email address that they type in, so they don't have to type in their email address on every single one of these forms. So they elaborate on what they learned. So here are the things that I learned. I never read that, actually, very rarely. Sometimes I will, but I pretty much never read that. This is just for them. But having the effectiveness and for the exercise and the instruction as part of this is super, super helpful information for me. I've made a lot of iterations on my workshop material from this. So strongly recommend that. And then general comments has also been very, very helpful for me making improvements to my workshop material. So those parts are for me, and I don't make that question required. This is for them, and I tell them it's very important that they do that. So every exercise has a link to that. And then I have an overall survey that I give them at the end as well. Because that's always useful. So in this type of workshop, you have files just all over the place. And then if we come back up here, right next to that markdown file, I have the exercise and the final. And so the exercise from here is basically the same thing, and the final, and then we have extra credits as well. Whoops. So the final is just the final version of that. And then we have the extra credits. And so, that typically works out pretty well. The only challenge is that you're going all over the place. You have to understand more of the domain of the app in this case, because for this one, it's pretty easy because you're just unit testing a thing. But for some of these, like this one, this authentication one, we're hitting the entire backend. So you have to know all the middleware and everything. So it's a bit more of a challenge, and having these emoji is really helpful to know, okay, this is what I need to do. Here's the URL I'm hitting, all of that stuff. But yes, still a bit more of a challenge. So this is my second favorite type of workshop. The reason that you do this is because there's just some types of material that cater better or that are better served by this type of a workshop than a totally isolated example. And so when we're talking about testing Node applications rather than just testing Node modules and stuff like that, then having a more real world situation is better. It's better suited in that way. My testing React applications, though, that workshop is just similar to that first example, where it's just isolated examples. And then the last, at the very end, I'm going to show them, okay, so here you've learned all this stuff. Let me just show you an example of an app that is tested using these principles. And here's the structure, and here's where things go and stuff. That typically is how that's going to work. Okay, so the third type of workshop is so we've got four. This next one is tricky, but it works pretty well. And that is, I want to teach you how to build a React app, but we're not going to build a full React app in just 4 hours of working, plus a 1 hour time of breaks. So what I do is I have a full React app, and then I make a branch, and here we have exercise. Well, here, let's go to the outline. It has links to all of these things. So we make a branch called exercises / and then whatever the exercise is. And in that branch, I just make a single commit to do all of this. and I remove all of the stuff that I don't want to have implemented yet. So this is our first exercise. I'd probably change this to have the exercise number, but and I will be doing that. But yeah, so we remove all of the stuff that shouldn't be there yet, and set it up to where it should be at the start of this exercise. So you don't build it totally from scratch. You're just building a piece, and you work through all of that. And actually, if we go to that branch, so exercise login form, and we come out over here. Oh, whoops, that was a mistake. So then we come to bookshelf on that branch. And then there's going to be this instructions. So you check out the branch and then you look at the instructions, because when you're doing this type of workshop, it's not something you can do in a single file. Like you're going to be changing files all over the place. And so in this case, we still have a markdown file. It's just always going to be at the root instructions.md, and we'll put our instructions in there. We've got background, and here's the stuff on the exercise. I don't have any extra credits on this one, but typically you'd have some extra credits in there as well. It should look very familiar. It's the exact same as what I do for everything else, except I also have here all of the files that you're going to be needing to go to. So then you can say, okay, I need to go to source app.js, and in here I have all of those same emoji. Here's what we've got, and here are the things you need to add. And so you go through and make sure you check off all what the emojis are doing. If you need to reference it, then we have the app finished version right here, and this is what the finished version looks like. And then we have some extra credit. So here's what the finished version of the extra credit is going to look like. And I do all of that in a single commit, and I don't remember where it is, but I did have a script that I would run. And actually, you know what? It might be in my package.json. Let's see, pre-push, I would run this update exercises. And so what this did is it just looked through all the branches. Yeah, I don't know. Basically all it did was it looked through all the branches, all the exercise branches, and it rebased onto, or reset hard master, and then it cherry picked the exercise commit, and preferring the exercise commit stuff. And so that only sometimes worked. Like a lot of times I had to deal with merge conflicts, but that helped a lot. As I was making changes to master, adding features or something, and then I'd have to go through and keep these updated. This is why this is not my favorite way to do this, because it is really difficult to make sure that it stays up to date as I'm making changes to the master branch. So really kind of a tricky one. But it works. Like for what it is, it works really well. And so if your type of workshop that you're creating is this type of workshop, then is the type where you're like, let's build this thing together, but you're not going to build the entire thing together, then and you're just going to build pieces, then this is a pretty good approach. It worked out pretty well. So each and every branch is just one commit off of master, where I just remove all the stuff that shouldn't be there for this particular exercise. So that worked out pretty well for the build React apps. So the last thing is, let me see. Okay, yeah. Benjamin asked a question about the breakout rooms. So probably the best, because I don't have anybody to demo this with, the best thing that you want is this. Oh, whoops. Well, I took you to it, but here, we'll just paste that in here. You can watch that. But here I demo like how I use the breakout rooms, how they work and everything. Let me see if I can see where that. Okay, my internet should be lickety split fast. I'm gonna blame Egghead on this one. Anyway, I show how I use Zoom in that. That'll probably be better than me trying to fake demo it for you. Okay, cool. Feel free to continue with the questions. So the last type of workshop that I have given is probably my least favorite. It's pretty well tied to this last one. This one I showed you with the bookshelf. But an example of this one would be Cypress. It's Jest, Cypress, React, Babel, Webpack. So this is this is my material for testingjavascript.com. And the way that this one works is I have a branch for the starting branch, and master is like the finished version. This is like if you were coming to reference what a real app using these tools should look like, then this is what it looks like. And so that's what master is. It's like the final lesson of everything that I'm using this repo for. This particular repo is actually, I use it to show you how to configure Jest and how to configure and use Cypress. So it's both of those things. But yeah, so here we have tjs/jest00, and this is the very first step. So, and honestly, it should only be one commit ahead and no commits behind. So I need to update this. And I actually do have a script. Let me see if I can find it for you. It's actually a script generator. I need to write a script for this, but let me find this for you. It was... You're going to laugh when you see this. Okay, so this is what it is. It's a spreadsheet. And yeah, okay. So yeah, I have one for Cypress, Jest, static testing, all of the workshops that are of this type, where I have one branch for every step, for every lesson, whatever, for every exercise. There will be just a branch. And yeah, and then I have all the branches right here, and then I have a get checkout line, and then a get reset hard, and then here's my cherry pick monstrosity thing that says, okay, let's cherry pick the commit that is for this branch that's on remote. It's kind of crazy, but what it ends up looking like here, if we do a, yeah, it's mostly this massive cherry pick. So at any point, if I'm like, okay, I just made a change to 5, and so I need to update everything from 6 on after, then I'll come here and I'll copy this, and I'll just paste it into a terminal window. And that ends up looking like here, like this. So it's a monstrosity. It's so bad, but it works great. It's certainly better than the alternative of doing this manually. But like, here's the problem. So the type of workshop that works well for this is where I say, hey, we're going to build something together from start to finish. So that's as opposed to the bookshelf app where I'm like, you're going to help me build pieces, but you're not going to do start to finish. I'm going to do a bunch of stuff for you between every exercise. And so that's like every one of these branches is off of master. This one is, we're going to build it from start to finish. And actually, as I think about it, maybe it would be better to do this and just have branches that we skip, because that might make it a little easier to keep things up to date. I'm not sure. Still need to think about that. But in any case, the way that this one works is the first commit for just 0, is take master and remove all of the stuff that we're going to be building in this course. And then 1 is going to be that first exercise. So if we do a comparison from 0 to 1, here we go. And then we need to switch these. Switch the base. So that is the commit, and this is what we did for this exercise. And this is actually really nice because then I can link people to this from the videos, and I can say, hey, here's what it looks like. Here's everything that we did in that video. And so they're like, oh, okay, you just changed the package.json, and he added this test. And he installed some stuff, so the package lock changed. That's all that changed. So it works out pretty well, but you end up having to do some really weird things if you say, oh, this dependency was updated, and I don't install that dependency until 0.5, and so that means I have to go to 0.5, I update that dependency, and then I run the script for cherry picking all the way up so that it's a straight line of commits. It's a bit of a headache, but the end result for the people going through the material is actually very good. The problem is, like on some of my easier workshops like React Fundamentals, where it's just a bunch of exercises, I get people contributing to this stuff all the time. But for this kind of workshop, there's no way I'm going to let anybody contribute to this stuff. Maybe on master, but yeah, not to like mid exercise or anything. That just won't happen. So that's unfortunate. But it's what you have to do. At least this is the way that I make it work. So that we can just like, we're going to build this whole thing together. So anyway, those are the 4 different workshop styles that I give. And I have one of every kind. I kind of think that these two are very similar, where this is one commit off of master, and this is commits building on each other. I'm actually, just as I'm talking about it, I'm thinking I might change this one to be that same kind, because that might be a little easier to maintain over the long term. Maybe. But in any case, having these different use cases for workshops ends up being necessary to format them differently. But delivering them is all the same. Like each one of these, so this one's a little bit different because I don't have, it's not really a workshop where I give you instructions on what to do. This is the difference between the bookshelf and the what I have for testing JavaScript, at least for this module of testing JavaScript. This one, we're building everything from scratch together, and so I can't have any emoji in there for you to follow along. And so this is one where you just kind of follow along with me. I really don't like that type of workshop, but like, I don't think anybody would get much joy out of following emoji to configure Jest or Cypress. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So there are some where it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to have those types of exercises. And maybe I'm just not thinking creatively enough. I'm not a huge fan of these types of things as workshops. These, I think, make better sense as extras or as just videos that people watch and learn and then apply to their own projects. Whereas stuff like this is like, hey, we're going to do these specific tasks so we can make this feature or whatever. That does seem to make more sense to me. But in any case, all of these workshops work really well. I'm really happy with them. And I think that you're going to love my React workshops that I'm giving remotely in the next 2 months. So feel free to sign up for those on here, and you'll get an email about it. And if you have any other questions about how I run workshops and stuff, then feel free to ask. I can't promise that I can answer. My bandwidth is kind of taken up, but I will try. And hopefully this presentation or this little Q&A was helpful. Somebody on Twitter suggested that I do a remote workshop, how to run a remote workshop. And that would take away from Epic React, so I'm not going to do that. And honestly, I think it would be hard to sell tickets to that. I don't know. There aren't very many people who do this, who think they need to know how to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I guess I answered everything. Let me think. As far as promoting and marketing it, I just send it to my list and tweet it, and that's typically enough. I don't think that I run a workshop unless sometimes I run workshops just so I can practice the workshop itself for myself. And so I have run, I think there was one, I don't remember when this was, but there was one where there were 4 people showed up, and I still gave it and they loved it. It was awesome. We had a great time, but, typically I'm going to have at least 10 people to make it worthwhile. The nice thing is that you don't have to go anywhere and you don't have to catch coronavirus. So that's good. Okay, Benjamin, can you talk about your video setup, what software you're using, etc.? Good question. Yeah. So what I would recommend for the workshop is Zoom. That's all that you really need. And you've got a webcam and your regular mic and everything. But if you really want to get something good, then I have my users page, and you can click on all these affiliate links and give me a ton of money from Amazon. No, just kidding. That's not how that works. But this is the way my office looks. And actually, you can go to a photosphere and look at the whole thing. Oh, look, sweet, somebody has looked at this thing. But I'll just show you around my office here really quick. So up in my ceiling, I have mounted still loading, a green screen. And it's like a projector thing that I just pull down. And that's what is sitting right behind me right now. I've got 2 light blade lights. These things are amazing, and they just illuminate the green screen. And they have these barnyard doors or these barn doors that keep the light off of me, so that I am not lit. And I can control their brightness right there. And I turn my light that is just like right by the green screen, I turn that off because it just makes a hot spot. And actually that's the lights behind the green screen as well. This is the lights for the blade lights, and then this is the control for the lights that are right above me. So I've got 2 lights right here so that there's less green on me. You can kind of see it, but it's not as noticeable. And then I have, of course, this. Oh, I guess I could show you those. Haha, that's what I'm doing here anyway. But yeah, so those 2 lights here. And then this light is really big. And I've got links for all of this stuff in there. And in fact, I have a office tour that you can watch as well. That's a YouTube video. But then my camera and my mic, and it's all great. Yeah, that's pretty much my setup. And all of the equipment that I use, that's all linked on that uses page. So if you have any other questions about that, then feel free to let me know. There we go. Which zoom plan works well? So I'm using the Egghead zoom, and I think I don't actually know which zoom plan they're using. I think they're using the one that supports webinars or something, or supports up to 500 people. It is expensive, but it is. I mean, the breakout rooms are really useful because it turns things from, okay, I'm just watching Kent, to, oh, I guess, wait, what am I doing? It's like, okay, no, I'm in a breakout room. I'm doing exercises right now. It combats the whole tendency that we have to just go to Twitter during exercises. So I heard Google was coming out with the new Zoom-like competitor. It's called Soon to Be Killed. LOL. That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah. I also, it was interesting. I saw that Discord opened up 50 attendees for free during this coronavirus thing. And so that's an option, but I don't think that they have breakout rooms. But the cool thing is they have all the chat and everything. I respect Discord a lot because their community is just like, their whole app, the whole experience is just so awesome, especially compared to Slack and stuff. So that's one that's maybe interesting, but that breakout room feature is just really nice. Yeah, feel free to ask any other questions. Are your remote attendees also videoing themselves? Are they chatting amongst each other? So they do sometimes chat amongst each other, and I do encourage that. I strongly recommend that people keep their video on, and you can, I even mentioned that in my outline here. I say, yeah, make this more human by keeping your video on if possible. Keep your microphone muted unless speaking. And then I explain what the breakout rooms are all about. And I do encourage people to interrupt me, unless it's unrelated, then they can ask for my AMA. But yeah, I strongly advise people to do that. Is there many convos going on, or just one with me? Yeah, it's mostly just me, but in the chat, yeah, like, and I don't know, because they can do private chats as well, but mostly it's just me talking to the camera. But sometimes in the chat, they'll be talking to each other, sharing links and stuff. And I share links in there as well to blog posts and things. So I know that we're like 15 seconds behind me seeing your question and you seeing my response. So sorry about that, but feel free to just like keep the stream of questions coming, and I'll keep going as long as I have questions to answer. So actually, I'll go ahead and I think that, oh, verify it's you. Okay. No, I don't want to sign in with that account. I want to sign in with this one. There we go. I think this should probably be public, because I don't really care if people see this thing. So I'll give you a link to this if you really care that much. Yeah, can view, save. Okay. So feel free to check that out if that's interesting to you at all. It's pretty hacky, so. Yeah, okay. I think that's probably it. Yeah, I hope that was useful. If somebody wants to do something super nice, then you could take all the advice that I took or that I just gave and write it down into like bullet point checklists or something. And that would be like probably really helpful to not only yourself, but also to anybody that you could share it with. That would be a nice, I just did a favor for you answering questions. If you could do that favor for the rest of the world, then we can both make the world a better place. So I hope that we can get past this coronavirus thing, because it's the pits. No fun. Thanks for tuning in. I'm going to do some open source stuff here, releasing React testing libraries. So I'm going to end this live stream, probably start another one right after. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. You can join me for that if you want to. So sweet. Got somebody said, I did Kent's remote React performance workshop with Zoom, and we helped each other a lot. These breakout rooms are great and interactive if you want to. Yes. 3 thumbs up. So I strongly agree with that. So people have very different experiences with the breakout rooms. I get wildly different feedback about those. Some people just hate them. They're like, I don't know what this thing was for. We just, I turned my video off and I just pretended I wasn't in a breakout room. For those people, I feel very sad that I wasn't able to convince them to have a better experience, because other people have this kind of a response, and they have the best, the best experience in my mind, because you learn so much more when your brain is engaged, and your brain is more engaged when you're making connections with other humans. And I just think it's such a better experience. So I'm glad that you had a great experience with it. It is a challenge as an instructor to make sure that people are interacting in those breakout rooms, but I think it's really imperative that they do that so they can have a really good experience with the workshop. So yeah, anyway, thanks everyone. I hope this is helpful. Good luck on your remote workshops. And we'll see you all. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna do some React testing library, hopefully launching the beta as stable today in the next couple hours. So good luck, and we'll see you all later. Peace. Oh yeah, I don't have this isn't coding with Kent, so I can't do like my outro thing. So I'm just gonna do this. Bye.